Okay, assalamu alaikum. I think it's high time we start something. Whoever is not here is not going to be here. The people available, I think, are enough for us to start. So, where did we stop last time? Yeah, I've treated the modes of I've treated those modes, cool? Which means today I'm going to look at something different. It's either we go for the social justice and the distribution of educational benefits. I think I would prefer that we take African philosophy and education. We've neglected this area for some time. We normally used to think that we leave it until when you come for the master's program. But not all of you come for masters. And even if you do, not all of you come for philosophy. So I think it's very important that we just try and see how we can treat it this time, so that you can at least have a takeaway for yourselves too. To begin with, what do you think is African philosophy? You should know that in most cases we try to kind of marginalize this mainstream, this philosophy into the mainstream discourse and philosophical discussions. Not really because Africans don't have a philosophy, but perhaps Africans did not actually document their philosophy in those days. What about now? Later, a lot of writers have written a lot about African philosophy. People like Ali Babatunde Fafunwa, this Abdul Mumuni from Niger Republic, people like Kwasi Wiredu. We speak of others like J.A. Akinpelu. All these people came and said something. And I think we have enough in the literature to say something about the African philosophy. So it's important that we see how we can discuss this, most especially the normal style that we take, looking at it from the dimension of metaphysics, epistemology, and axiology, and then look at the educational implications of this African philosophy, just like the way we've been treating our own schools of philosophical thought. So this is not a school, but rather a kind of a continental philosophy. We're looking at it from a dimension of identity or from a dimension of geographical space. So most of the time when we hear African philosophy, a lot of people like to use the word indigenous African philosophy to target to be from the people of Africa. And I have for some time been querying this. That why not just African philosophy, we're not talking about indigenous African philosophy. Have you heard of indigenous Western philosophy or indigenous American philosophy? I'm asking the question. Have you ever heard of something like that? That indigenous European philosophy?
We have indigenous African.
Why? Why do you have to use indigenous for Africa?
Because African before, we are now some of part of Africa were transferred to Europe and other Western countries. So they now kind of became citizens of those countries later on.
Mm-hmm.
While we here now, we have they are not indigenous, maybe they are always acquired.
Well, you've tried. You've tried and trying to at least justify why they use the word indigenous. Because I've always been like trying to think it to be like maybe more or less like an inferiority complex for the Africans.
we are colonized by the whites. When they now left us, we've gone on our own. So it's like our philosophers before, they really ideas of Africa were the way structured by the Western people. They later denied the us. That's the way I see it. So what they're trying to do, they really not the Western, the colonies, their own philosophy, our own philosophy.
Yeah, I understand you too. You are looking at it from the dimension of the fact that saying we were colonized by these people, and after the colonization, most of the time the education that we were receiving from them at that time was solely from their own philosophies and not ours. So that was why we thought that maybe when we are now trying to study philosophy, and I would say indigenous African philosophy. However, as far as I'm concerned, I think this is more or less like an inferiority complex. I think we have come of age to boldly speak of just African philosophy. Because we have educationists in Africa, and we also have the brains as well in Africa. We don't have to actually feel inferior to anyone. Because after all, even if you go there, we used to excel. We used to supersede their own normal performance. We've seen a lot of way our own children have gone there and have excelled. So we don't need to actually feel any inferior to anyone. We can also stand on our own. So this is why I think we just say African philosophy. Therefore, now let us quickly go into the issue of African metaphysics. Metaphysics in African philosophy. How do you actually think? From this point of view, this African metaphysics deals with a lot of spiritualities. The Africans believe in a lot of spiritual beings. Like when we have what they call the gods. Those gods of the African traditional religion are somewhat metaphysical or spiritual issues. You think about maybe when someone dies, he goes and stays with the gods there. He had the god of this, the god of that, from the African perspective. Although even we too in Africa, we've also been dominated by these two dominant religions of the world. Africa, you see, Christianity as well as Islam being dominant there. So, in fact, some people even think that now, the way the Africans used to practice religion, some would even say that God is in Africa. Because the way we in Africa used to pray, the way you used to see people going to church, people going to the mosque, you think there is no any other place where they do practice religion like in Africa. That was why some people would say that God is even in Africa. Just a way of expressing how deeply rooted the religions of these two bipolar religions are. Although some people see them as different, but their similarities are much more than the differences there. Most especially the fact that they are all monotheistic religions. Monotheistic in that they believe in that same one God. Just the approach is what matters. However, there is this saying that there's something they call this spiritual interconnectedness. In Africa, they kind of believe in this spiritual interconnectedness in that, like what they call like in this Bantu philosophy, that I am because we are. That I am because we are is more or less like saying that whoever is within your own clan is also part of your own extended self. We believe in this extended family bloodlines. the Africans have a way of connecting to themselves, so that wherever an African sees his own brother in any other country, they feel that they are brothers. Instead of calling him bro, something like that. Bro, that bro or whatever, that interconnectedness is not just through the African religion itself, but even our own religions, the dominant religions, also believe in that interconnectedness. Like in Islam, I know of the place where God said, "Innamal mu'minuna ikhwa," that all believers are brothers of each other, irrespective of tribe or whatever, or race. This one is cutting across all races, all whatever you can think about. Provided you share the same faith, and that person is also your brother, and you should also be your brother's keeper. So, this is what the Bantu people are talking about. And we also have this issue of this Ujamaa, just like the way it is looked at from the Tanzanian perspective. Julius Nyerere, while he was discussing the Arusha Declaration, he made mention of this African socialism, this issue of communal bond between members of a particular society, most especially within Africa. That there's a kind of, that spirit of brotherhood is still that same thing that we've been talking about. That communal relationship, that bond that is existing, they said is very important as far as the Africans are concerned. So that is the kind of the spiritual connection that the Africans are sharing. Then with respect to epistemology, that is knowledge. The African traditions primarily used to transmit knowledge through oral traditions, through oral forms, like folk tales and some storytelling. You go and meet people, and most especially if you want to learn something again through experience. They also believe in that knowledge is also experience, of course, whether we like it or not. It's experiential, just like the type of the one we have in pragmatism. Experiential in that whenever you are going to learn something, or a trade or a craft, you go and stay with that individual who is practicing it through this apprenticeship. You stay with him for as long as he wishes to certify that today you have been graduated. Yes, you might not actually have a specific time, like the formal educational curriculum that we have, but it definitely has a particular ending period. When someone will say that today you have been graduated, you can go and be on your own. We've seen how our own people are doing that across the languages or across the tribes. You see how the Igbos used to groom their own people. When they want to make someone to be into the business, they carry him along, they go to they go to anywhere they want to take that individual, so that he or she can have the first-hand experience. And this is the kind of knowledge that Africans were transferring, or transmitting rather. So their knowledge is experiential, and at the same time, in most cases, it is done through storytelling, through folk tales, and sometimes even the proverbs. The proverbs also provide most of the African knowledge base. Through a lot of proverbs, we learn a lot. Cool? We can start mentioning them now. You can say as many as we can from any language. I'm Hausa, I can give you more in Hausa, and maybe a few in Yoruba. Maybe I should start with the Yoruba. Yes. I will give you this one. They said, Toba she muobo. No, Toba fe muobo. A she biobo. Toba fe muobo, ashe biobo. Any Yoruba around? Am I making any sense? Am I making any sense? That if you want to catch a monkey, you have to behave like one of them. Just also try to behave like the monkey too. You go there, what they call farabale. You go. That is from the Yoruba perspective. They will teach you something. They have a lot of them. Yoruba is one of the most rich languages that we have. And yes, in Hausa, we have a lot of them. Like this one, I used it, like I think yesterday, in one of my philosophy classes, in trying to explain something that Taisho Laren was saying. He wrote an article saying that may your road be rough. Everyone was like, what kind of negative someone is this one? It was an article, but when he said that, people were like thinking him to be too strict and too negative, too harsh. But by the time he established the Mayflower School and was practicing this may your road be rough, the kind of product that he was graduating from that school, people really understood that what he was saying was not for a joke. So in Hausa, I was trying to explain now, I'm coming back to my proverb now. In Hausa, they're saying that kaso danka duniya ta kishi, ka ki danka duniya ta so shi. Simply saying that if you love your child too much, you are overprotective about the child, then that child is not going to make it in the nearest future. But if you kind of allow the child to be exposed to the sunlight, to be exposed to hashes of realities, then that child is likely to be taken over by the world. The people who like the child will be successful. So through these proverbs, there are a lot of ways we speak. Now? You said? Yes, please give us one. I've already given two now. I didn't claim to know any in Igbo. I only said I will say some in Yoruba and Hausa. I can also say another in Arabic if you want. In Arabic. Arabic is not an African language. However, it's part of the lingua franca in Africa here. We have some Africans that also speak Arabic, like Sudan, Egypt. So it's actually okay if we can bring some from the. Not necessarily. Where is Cameroon?
Cameroon is west.
Is West Africa?
We have French. It's just behind us. We are sharing border with Cameroon.
Yet they speak Arabic. Cameroon and Chad, they speak Arabic. They speak Arabic there. So what I'm trying to say is that in Arabic, there's this saying that خُذْ شَيْئًا مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَخُذْ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَيْئًا. خُذْ شَيْئًا مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَخُذْ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَيْئًا. The saying that take something out of everything. That is speaking of knowledge now. Don't just be too. Don't be a master of all trades now. And what? I mean, jack of all trades, a master of none. What they're trying to say is that khud shay'an min kulli shay'in, have somewhere, whenever they come to you, they say, this is so person's territory. You should be a specialist in something. However, do not allow yourself to be dumb in all other areas too. They say, well, khud min kulli shay'in shay'a. And then from all other parts of knowledge, then know something. Pick something. Don't just be say, that is not my area, so I don't want to know anything there. No. Provided this knowledge, try to know something. Pick something out of there. This is one of the Arabic sayings. And if you go down to the philosophical arguments given by some philosophers, this is what we call philosophy of pansophia. Pansophism or pansophia, argued by John Amos Comenius. And in this kind of situation, he was like, even though his own was different, he was telling that you should be like Christ-like. You should be like the God in whose image you are being made. Try to have knowledge of as much as you can. Grasp knowledge of everything that you can lay your hands on. So there are a lot of ways we can discuss this. There's not much time. Now, going through the African values, speaking of axiology here, in Africa, yes, the general makeup is saying that we cherish communal values more than anything. Communal values more than anything. This communal spirit is a way of having this kind of a disposition of ensuring that everyone is following the society. You being a part of our society, then you must be just like how the society wants you to be. This is more or less like looking at it from the dimension of realism. The realists said that we should also follow the culture. Who? The realists said that we should follow the culture because the culture is the reality of those people. And this is exactly what the Africans are also talking about. However, this is not just what they are looking at. They also look at such things as this omuma in Igbo language. When they say something is omuma, or they say this is mazu ezibo, madu ezibo, ezibo madu or madu ezibo, however you want to put it. Who? A good person. In Yoruba language, it is more or less more sophisticated into something they call the omoluabi. Omoluabi. That is why I'm not an Igbo. The reason why is that I've been to Yoruba land. You understand? The reason why I'll come and speak of the one of Hausa too. And I'm Hausa. However you want to put it. I don't know, maybe because I've been with them for as long as I can count. The concept of omoluabi is not just talking about the educated person. It's talking about what they call the embodiment of virtues. An embodiment of virtues. That's anything the good you can think about, that person has it. That was why I said it is more sophisticated. Like in Hausa, they simply use the word mutumin kirki. You hear them say, I want to that. Maybe if someone dies, the best word that they would want to hear people saying about that individual is that that guy was a very good guy. He was a good person. Cool? And whenever someone is given that kind of title, there is even this saying that if people are passing by, this is even a hadith, that if people are passing by with a corpse, and people around were asking, or are asking that, who is this? They said, I saw so person. And the people that were hearing about the so person, I said, I want to kirki. They said, the Prophet ﷺ said that individual then will be taken as that. If the people are talking about him to be good, of good character, even if he was having his own errors between him and his God, they said God will forgive that individual because of the kind of testimony he received from others. So that was why they said, even if you want to do something bad, don't do it openly. Keep it between you and your Lord. Don't be proud of what you are doing. And at the same time, the reason why God doesn't like that one is you exposing yourself, showing people that what you are doing is so boldly that you don't care. At the end of the day, when people give a bad testimony against you, even if you have the good sides of yourself, those testimonies are going to override your goodness. And at the same time, God does not like you to show you people how bad you are, because at the end of the day, you are teaching them to be bad. That is what God does not like. So that is talking about Mutumin Kirki, Ezibo Madu, talking about Madu. What did I say wrong? You these evil people. Stand up and speak well now. Does it have to be sweet? A hype?
Yes, by the women.
The women?
Yes. When the women say it's evil man, that means the man has done something good.
Yes. He has given them some money. He has drawn something. Can you imagine? So I guess apart from all this, it's all talking about issues like cultivation of ethical and social responsibility. You found out that we're just talking about how we should be responsible, how we should be ethical. In African philosophy, we value these things, we cherish these things very well. Respectful for the societal norms and values. We have to respect the culture. Never just overlook our people. Simply because maybe you've been to the Yankee or whatever you want to call it. Then when you come back, you start thinking that we are not civilized. Simply because we don't smoke, or we don't maybe go around clubbing. So you just think that we don't know what's up. It's not like that. That is what Majasan would call the deluded hybrids. What they call the marginal man. Don't allow yourself to be a marginal man. The Africans would tell me to be a marginal man, because a marginal man is is a sociological concept actually, talking about someone who has denounced his own culture and is trying to try to identify with another culture who is not ready to actually bring him in. That is why they say he is a citizen, or he is a member of two societies and a citizen of neither. He's somewhere hanging on the fence. He wants to jump down there. They say, don't you ever come down. And he's leaving this, and you people are too archaic, you people are too barbaric. And he's trying to jump down there, and they say, never you come down there, you don't belong here. So that is why they say he's a marginal man. He's hanging on the balance. You don't allow yourself to be such kind of person. Now, the system of traditional education in Africa, we have like different ways of looking at it. The aim in education is talking about the holistic development of the individual. That is the primary aim of education in Africa, the holistic development of the individual. Because education is viewed as a lifelong process that integrates intellectual, moral, social, and spiritual dimensions of the life of the individual. We try to see how we don't just allow someone to just simply go and start saying that he or she wants to just study that. So when he comes out, he's going to be a specialist. No. They want you to have an overall development from both moral and the cognitive side. Most especially if you're looking at it from the dimension of this Bloom's taxonomy. We found out that we don't actually value the cognitive domain alone. The affective is also very important as well as the psychomotor. They like to use the word, this 3H. They want to train the 3 H's, cool? The 3 H's. That is speaking of the head, that is the cognitive, the heart, which is the affective, and then the hand, which is the psychomotor. So, whichever way you are looking at it, the African aim of education is trying to see that you have a balanced individual from those perspectives. So the curriculum content has oral literature and history. We talk about oral literature and history, the use of proverbs, folktales, legends that transmit lessons of morality and historical memory of our own past. And in fact, one of the importance of this history is for Africans to actually know their true sense of worth, most especially those that have been taken to the overseas in form of slavery. Just before the coming of Martin Luther King, with his own "I Have a Dream," and the subsequent freedom that Africans had across the Europe and America. Through this history, we begin to understand that majority of us were actually from even royal families while we were taken away from our own lands. Simply because we tried to fight against the tyranny of the colonial masters. Our people were taken away, the princes and what have you. They were taken and turned into slaves. But it's only through history that you can actually be able to trace your lineage and also your own source of pride. Through the curriculum, we also have practical skills and crafts. This is what I was talking about, the hand. That is true apprenticeship in the traditional trades that we have. Issues of crafts, weaving, blacksmithing, even carpentry, farming techniques, which are all tailored towards the development of our own local environment. And then we have another dimension of it, that is cultural and spiritual practices. Inside the curriculum of the traditional system of education, we have cultural and spiritual practices. And with this, we see that we do rituals, music, dance, ceremonies that reinforce community identity. Majority of these are ceremonies used to what? Yeah, I should come again.
Yes, this last part, cultural and spiritual practices.
I said we first of all do rituals. These rituals will be in form of a lot of ways. Not always talking about killing someone. Go? Initiation into something. Maybe some children have been trained to learn a particular source of trade, and now they want to kind of graduate them. So they do those kind of rituals, maybe to simply kind of initiate them into the community of adulthood, most especially if maybe they are going to join the clan of the hunters, or perhaps maybe they are going to join a particular clan of, line of trade. They want to say that these are now the new graduates we have, and we want to release them to go and stand on their own. We want to establish more communities around. In most cases, when someone is kind of being graduated in this kind of situation, they don't actually want you to just remain where you are. They want you to shift a little so that the culture can be expanded. That is how we actually expand our own cultures. So they do those kind of rituals. We also have music. We have dance. That dance is very important. Different traditions, or let me say different cultures have different, or tribes, if you like, have different ways of dancing. And this is one of the reasons why you see that if they're doing any cultural something, they will have their own costumes. The costumes will be different, and the dance itself will also be different. Each tribe has its own costume. So those costumes and customs are what we're talking about under the spiritual and the cultural practices here. And these ceremonies that reinforce community identity, ceremonies like, think about the Argungu Fishing Festival. Who? Yam Festival. New Yam. In which part of the country? In Igbo land. The New Yam Festival. You see? I used to even see another one from like Calabar, and I think Port Harcourt, Benue. They have their carnivals too. They have some carnivals that they normally do. All these are talking about identities. Yes, this is part of the cultural and spiritual practice we are talking about inside the curriculum. Yes. Because they form our own community identity as well as what they call spiritual connectedness. Because this spiritual connectedness, like I started talking about it in the Metaphysics, is still very important in Africa. Okay? So, the method of teaching, speaking of the method of teaching, I've already started talking about many of them. The number one is oral instruction. Oral instruction. That is learning through storytelling, songs, and dialogues. Then we have the apprenticeship system, talking about hands-on learning in a communal setting. Communal in that when you come, you don't just simply kind of take a portion of that and say, this is yours. They don't believe in individualism in Africa. They believe in this communal ownership. That this land belongs to our family, not belongs to me or you. It belongs to all of us. So it's our own responsibility to take care of it. So our feeding and everything, that is why in those days there was no such thing as unemployment. You don't see someone suffering alone. Because the whole community, if everyone is going to suffer, then we are going to suffer together. And if everyone is kind of happy and is feeling well, then everyone is also going to be, going to be for the whole community. So that is why in those days there is no such thing as hunger and seeing people begging around. because there is enough food there. And no one is left to be idle again. You're always engaged into doing something. They don't allow you to just wander around. They say that is dangerous, it's going to be a bad egg. Because they believe in that an idle man is a devil's workshop. So skills are passed from one generation to the next through observation and imitation, through this apprenticeship, while we also have this communal engagement, just like I've already started talking about. So this is the African philosophy. For us to just make a critique as a way of philosophical standard, we need to make a critique for this African philosophy, just like that we have been doing for others. Go. The first critique will go against this African. Well, let us look at the positive ones first. There is no such thing as unemployment. Hunger is therefore not an issue. Everyone is employed. And by extension, crime is also reduced. You don't have a reason to commit crime, to steal. That is why it is a taboo in those societies for them to find you stealing. Because they do know that feeding and whatever necessity that you require is not a problem for you. You simply want to be a wayward. And that's why it's like in some cultures, like in the Igbo land, they simply burn you alive. I know. They burn you alive because they don't tolerate stealing. They believe that everyone is being taken care of. Nobody is hungry, so you don't have any reason to steal. The job is there for you to do. You understand? So that is the first criticism we can think about. Yes, nobody is proud of what happened in Edo. Please. Those were not thieves. Everyone should know that. The people that were killed, the 21 people that were killed, there were 27 in number, only 4 escaped. Nobody is proud of that. They were not thieves, nor were they terrorists. They were simply hunters who were misconceived by some angry mobs around. And the government is doing all it can to bring those people to justice. So we're not going to actually discuss much on that one. We're not here for that. However, we need to condemn that incident. So that is about that. And then secondly, through this system of education, they also believe in these practicalities of skills. You find out that we have a lot of specialists. It breeds what specialists. And it brings this kind of specialty such that you don't usually see people saying that, today I've graduated and there's no job. Because as soon as you finish, the job is there waiting for you. The job is there waiting for you. So the system was well grounded into these crafts. The way we used to train our kids, the way they learn those kind of trades is so superb that they don't actually get to be unemployed. They don't become useless in the society after graduating, going from one office to another looking for a job. There is no such thing in the African system of education. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people are saying that if you really want to get it right, you have to look inwards. You have to get back to that communal spirit if you really want to solve this problem of unemployment. So that is that. Now, speaking of some other negative side of the African system, it was not well documented in the beginning. It was not well documented. It is just recently that we are seeing such things happening. And we have such documents now. There are a lot of, we can even say that this, let me say, weakness has already been taken care of by the current generation of philosophers as well as the generation of educationists. So African system of education is well documented now. We can't actually see that as an excuse to condemn it. But back then, there was no such thing as it being well written and documented. But now we can do that. And we can still put it inside our own hidden curriculum if we want. Cool? And then this issue of some rituals in some societies, they engage in some practices that are actually barbaric. Most especially when we are talking about the traditional religion. Someone will come and say one of the gods, saying that from a particular house, you need to sacrifice a virgin. You need to kill this, you need to kill that. Killing of human beings, life is sacred, as far as these our religions are concerned. Life is sacred, and even just on moral grounds, you should know that that is not actually right. Nobody has to tell you that to kill someone, a person, is not right. All in the name of maybe appeasing a god. And maybe if they don't appease that particular god, he will kill more people. So in their own thinking then was that they need to kill that person to save the others. And looking at it from a different dimension that we are not seeing it now. That maybe if a calamity is befalling a particular kingdom, the only way to appease the gods according to them was to go and sacrifice someone. If they sacrifice someone, they believe that killing that individual is saving the rest of the members of the society. There's more or less like a larger sacrifice for a greater good that they are looking at. However, we still believe that such things could be averted in these days of ours. Cool? So that is just the controversy that you can think about when talking about the spiritual, or let me say the ritual side of traditional system of education in Africa. There are a host of others that you can think about through the method of teaching, the content, and even the overall philosophy itself. So this is about African philosophy. I believe they have taught somewhere that we all would want to hear about. And we are still proud of this philosophy of ours. We don't use the word indigenous before we qualify it to be ours. It is just there, and it is standing on its own. And the only comparison we can give it nowadays is that it is very much into this education for self-reliance. The African system of education provides self-reliance, just like the way the pragmatic system of education is providing us with self-reliance. Are we clear? So this is actually what we're looking at. In fact, some people even used to think that this pragmatism was more or less like lending from the African system of education, this issue of experience and what have we. However, I tried to kind of explain to those individuals that no, it's not actually what they are thinking. Because pragmatism did not actually start with John Dewey. Majority of us think of John Dewey when they talk about the pragmatist idea. The pragmatist idea started as far back as the 17th to 18th century. That is speaking of the times of C.S. Peirce and William James. These people were the ones that actually started the philosophy. John Dewey only perfected and lived it and practiced it in his own school. That was just it. However, we are trying to say that if we are to compare it with any of these Western philosophies, then the closest among them to African philosophy is the pragmatic philosophy. Because African philosophy is practical. It is practical oriented and apprenticeship system. Through crafts, we've already discussed all those things. Paul? So I think I'm done. Yes.
Pragmatism, is it because the basically